Greetings once again, my dear viewers, and welcome to the third installment of our 24 episode Halloween series. As usual, today's video will feature 3 thrilling segments, 1 curious cryptid case, 1 peculiar occult factoid, and 1 exploration into a chilling, haunted location. As usual, we hope here at the Wallaby Mages that you would never consider passing on even a single segment of our wonderful show. But for now, I personally would be content if you would join us for a stroll through the enchanted Austrian hills with the Ghoul of Moles at our side. The Hoia-Baciu, it's one of Romania's great natural wonders. A beautiful forest park whose trees grow in a strange, twisted pattern, all their own. Oh, and the place has such history, or so they say. Supposedly, the forest has played host to the executions and murders of numerous peasants and soldiers, both during and at the fall of the reign, the illustrious reign of Romania's most notorious folk hero, illustrious local legend, and infamous avoider of unnecessary cruelty, Vlad Tepes Dracul, who may also have been killed there, according to local legend, at least. However, it might surprise you, dear viewer, that once the sun sets upon the forest and you find yourself isolated amongst the bent and malformed trees, the Hoia-Baciu is actually kind of a terrifying place. So why not run a lengthy night marathon just there? Man, my list of life goals, it just keeps getting longer and longer every day. Seriously though, this place is haunted. A place where the long dead's lingering curse has left vast, empty, uniform clearings where no tree might grow, no matter how twisted or malformed it be. One such clearing, both perfectly ovular and quite popular to visit, is in fact the site of a infamous UFO PGO, a unidentified, flying, potentially ghostly object. In fact, many would attribute the Hoya-Bachu's strangeness, its disappearances and ghastly frights, not to ghostly ghouls or ancient curses, but rather to queerer forms of supernatural fuckery. Some say the devil himself wanders these woods, bending the trees into strange shapes and declaring the empty clearings as his own hellish property. Which is why, of course, no tree may bloom, or sprout rather, upon them. Some have claimed to be witness to cult-like or even occult-like behaviors going on deep in the forest. And while it might indeed surprise you to hear it, dear viewer, many have claimed to have sighted potentially alien spacecrafts hovering over the darkened depths of the Hoya-Bachu. Which is ridiculous, of course. I mean, life on other planets? Don't they know that that's where ghosts go during the day? Ridiculous. Also, while tales of shadowy figures, UFPGOs, and... wait. There's mysterious scratches, rashes, and bruises which appear on visitors mysteriously. Hey guys. You know, guys, I've actually lived and backpacked through various non-haunted woods, IRL, and I think I solved the mystery. Anyway, there's something even more terrifying in these woods than shadow boys and sumac rashes. Time travel. Yes, that's right. It is said that many years ago, a small woman spawn, a child, dare I say, of no more than 5 years, wandered spookily into this, the most spooky of forests. She would not be seen again. Until, of course, years later, she would emerge from the forest, unchanged. Oh, the horror of it all. Her poor parents must have surely hoped that she had spent the time wisely, perhaps developing valuable survival skills, or growing into a glorious, wonderful skeleton. He's gone. My skeleton's gone. Where the fuck is he? Oh, fuck! He's behind the couch. Ah, yes. He was moved for television watching purposes. A glorious, tiny skeleton. I'm glad I made sure my prop was in place for that one. But no! No! You see, instead, the UFPGOs simply skipped her forward in time, presumably to save communist Romania from the dire threat of Western capitalism. Anyway, the moral of the story is to visit the freaking Hoia Baciu already. Seriously, the Balkans are so cool. They're filled with cool places. Just like this. Spooky folklore, textured history, weird Soviet era shit. And they're all like within one peninsula of each other. So, come on people. Go to Europe, skip over Rome, Florence, Venice, Paris, London. Are you serious? You gonna go to Prague instead? You gonna go to Bruges? No. You head over to Eastern Europe and you visit that cool spooky shit. Like a responsible adult.
So, seals, or sigils, depending on how they're written, it's nuanced. I'm gonna close the door. God damn, try this again. So, seals, or sigils, it's kind of a nuanced difference. They're the same thing, essentially. They have a pretty complex history, and just about every culture has some form of them, used from warding off evil and demons to small protective spells, or just as a way to invoke deities. Now, seals as we know them are considered a form of chaos magic and can be completely individualized. Everyone can write their own, everyone activates them and uses them in different ways. Now, historically, in terms of where we get them in modern witchcraft and modern Wiccanism, okay, sorry, trying to think of the best way to put it. Historically, they come from medieval ceremonial magic. Which used seals and sigils as a way to invoke specific angels and demons. Many of these have been passed down, and many people have copied them into different grimoires, which we'll talk about later, some of the most famous ones. One particularly well-known list of sigils, though, comes from the Lesser Key of Solomon, in which there's a page, and I'll have Walter put it up on the screen here. There's a page of 72 different sigils representing the princes of hell and their hierarchy. So, you know, they've got the list. Now, this is all fine and dandy until we get to the early 1900s. Where a gentleman known as Austin Osman Spare compounded on this idea of invoking and controlling angels and demons by completely getting rid of the angel and demon part of this. He took sigils and seals and instead started to use them to control outside forces. The forces of the psyche or of the individual user, right? And he is arguably the biggest reason why they are so individualized today. He was practicing during the same time as the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, See, I told you I'd mention them again. And he was friends with a few of the members. But while the Golden Dawn officially dissolved in 1903, Mr. Spare was still writing his grimoires. He was still a huge part of the occult phase of the time. The last of Mr. Spare's grimoires would actually be published in 1921, and they are still available today. He did pass in 1956, and he hadn't written anything that had been published, but it is known that he had some personal grimoires that have been saved. I wasn't able to find a source to try and get a copy of any of them, but in a few of his biographies, it did mention that his later works were saved, but that he did not wish for them to be published. So while Mr. Spare has passed, his influence on this particular aspect of modern witchcraft, of modern Wiccanism, of the modern occult is still one of the biggest influences to this day. His work still continues to be purchased, continues to be compounded on, and it is, for all intents and purposes, the way we create seals. That isn't to say that there aren't other ways of doing it and that you couldn't use the original way of creating them. It's just the most popular, and for good reason. A lot more people nowadays aren't religious, or if they are religious, aren't Christian. So it gives them a little more play with how they practice and what their practice entails. So yeah, seals, sigils, it's pretty neat looking. Here's a couple that, I use personally. Walter, slave. Flash them on the screen. Pew, 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 pew. Pew, 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 pew. God, I'm gonna cut the recording.
Some call him the Boogeyman. Some just a man living in the woods. But in the forest near the city of Moles in Switzerland, he is described as 6 feet tall, wearing a gas mask on his face, as well as wearing a long, black, hooded cloak with what's loosely described as a military-style boiler suit. While there has been no reports of attacks or assaults coming from the Ghoul of Moles, there is often reported a sense of threat or fear given off by this entity. And there's even been some alleged photos of Lei Loyan, lending to the credence of this just being simply a man who enjoyed to go for a walk in his attire that some say is possibly a fetish suit.
What the sentence structure of that last bit? I'm a little confused
I
as to what you just said to me.
I don't. Yeah, look at how I typed this up. I was like, wait, this makes no sense. I was like, I don't know how to say it, salvage this shit.
Take half a minute and salvage it.
One theory about
The Ghoul of Moles
is that it was simply a man who had a particularly specific fetish that he enjoyed to go for a stroll in possibly just this fetish suit that nobody understood him. And some add to this credence with the fact that there was his articles of clothing and a supposed suicide note found after there was an article published about him attached with a photo that has now become infamously connected with the Ghoul of Moles. The article in question was from a newspaper called Le Matin, or just simply
the morning.
The note that was found with the garb reads as follows. Dear nickname Patrick Dumatin, not only are you a moron, but you are above all an assassin. You murdered a very harmless being who found in his walks a real therapy of happiness. A cerebral resourcing allowing him to face the responsibilities and the vicissitudes of his normal life.
And he had some...
This ghost cannot explain the happiness, but you do not seem to know Sasher Mush. You will discover that it takes everything to make a world. Then you are an assassin of freedoms. To hear you, we find ourselves in the Middle Ages. At the time of the witches, why don't you rise up against the little toads, helmets, hoods, dressed in leather, who backfire on their motorcycles in these same forests, them in violation? Do they take the time to meditate in front of the little oratory to ask for a better world? I terrorize children, make me laugh. Why are they not terrified by the horrors and crimes, very real these, that they see on television or in the media? Who is in charge of settling the tolerance and freedom button in this company? These beautiful notions benefit more dealers, pimps, burglars, rapists, and hooligans. Switzerland is small. Anything that is not in accordance with
the garden gnome
must be eradicated. I thought, during these years, while I was always left alone until you, that these feelings were evolving, you give me the opposite proof, unfortunately. The phantom disappears, the risk of a beast hunt is too great. It will come back to haunt the narrow minds of your kind, for ultimately a ghost never dies. This translation could possibly be slightly incorrect, as it seems some parts don't necessarily line up in English, but that is the best translation that we have currently, directly from the Ghoul of Moles. So in end, some may believe that the Ghoul of Moles was a supernatural creature, or some simply say it was just a man who liked to take a stroll in some unusual outfits that some took offense to. But in the end, such as many things we discuss here, we will never truly know the truth behind the Ghoul of Moles.
Thank you for tuning in to another exciting episode of Cryptid Corner. Join us in the next episode, where the Ghoul of Moles will be performing a live demonstration of the many alternative uses for his iconic gas mask. Hoy about you, it's coming right at you, it's gonna get you, trying to snatch you, not a snafu. Directors attach you to movies with lassos. Thank you. Thank you all so much. I'd like to thank my mom and skeleton god for all that they've given me, for bringing me into this glorious moment. Well, dear viewer. Looks like I'm going to have to consider getting back into camping. I hope, for both our sakes, that you really enjoyed this video, dear viewer. And I hope, for your sake, that you would consider joining us on the morrow for another exciting video. In tomorrow's video, an autumn storm will sweep us back across the Atlantic and bring us to rest in the Gulf Mexico, wherein we are certain to witness the drinking of blood and the dancing of coffins, to be certain.